Hey, what's going on, you guys? Welcome back to another video, and today this is my response to the Metal Tag 2023 video that's been making the rounds on YouTube. And today's topic was started by the Rock Scout YouTube channel, who I'm not too familiar with, but I will link his channel below in the description, so make sure you go and check him out. It's been a little while since I've done one of these basement style videos where I'm down here in the jam cave just talking about music and showing a bit of the collection, which is kind of nice. I'm not out there getting my ass kicked on a trail, so I figured this was a good way to get the year kicked off on the channel. Just make it easy and answer some questions, and I don't know, everybody seems to be doing this one, so it looks like a lot of fun. Let's get started. Alright, so the first topic is False Start album, an album you struggled with at first but grew to like. So for this one I picked Bathory's Blood on Ice. Not too long ago, I did a deep dive on the Gas Masks and Hand Grenades channel where we deep dive into the discography of a band, and this was a two-part video series that we did for Bathory. And before that, I had never really paid attention to the Viking era of this band, and I think I might have listened to a song or two and it just didn't grab me. I couldn't stand the vocals, and I just never gave it the time that it deserved. And that's the cool thing about doing those deep dives, is you're kind of forced to go and spend time with certain records. And so this one I know is highly revered, so I really wanted to give it its due. I must have listened to it like 5 to 10 times. At some point in there, it finally clicked for me. And I think it's really just due to the strength of the songwriting overall on the album. The vocals I still struggle with a little bit, but I just kind of grew to sort of find them endearing in a way. It's one of those albums that it just took a lot of time for me to finally appreciate. So, Bathory's Blood on Ice. Album with war theme or lyrics. So there's quite a few that I could have picked from my collection, but I decided to go with Dismember's Massive Killing Capacity, specifically for the track, the third track, On Frozen Fields, which is all about trench warfare and, you know, the nightmare of fighting in the trenches in World War I. Quite a few other war-themed songs on this record, but that would definitely be the one I would go with, and also one of my favorite Dismember tracks as well. Whereas like a lot of this record was kind of like trying to sound a little bit more commercial, On Frozen Fields sounds like classic Dismember. Great riffs, great band, one of my favorites. Most influential metal musician of the last 10 years. So I talk about this band way too much, but given the question, I can't help but pick Aaron Carey of Nichachwin. And a lot of reasons for that. I just find the music extremely honest, and I love just the concept. I mean, this band is the full package in terms of the music, the concept, the imagery, and you know, the storytelling, the liner notes, everything that he puts into these records in terms of his heritage and his attempts to trace back a lot of lost history when it comes to the Native Americans in his region. So I don't know, the newest record was absolutely amazing, but if you guys, you know, getting into Nichachwin from the new one, definitely go back to Heart of Akamon. This one's just as good as the new one. A band on your to see list. Well, that one's really easy for me. That would be Emperor. I've never really had the opportunity to see them back in the day when they were still putting out records and actually touring. I wasn't quite into them yet. Since then, they do select shows here and there, select festivals. Most recently, this past summer, Psycho Las Vegas, I just could not justify going because I had already spent so much money on doing Fire in the Mountains and the Maryland Death Fest. So I was really bummed because I was afraid, and still afraid, that that might be my only opportunity to have seen them. But who knows? They seem to be doing this select appearances a lot lately, so hopefully I'll get an opportunity to see them one of these days. An album that energizes you. So there's lots that I could have picked for this, but the first thing that came to mind, and this is kind of a recent acquisition, is Enforced Kill Grid. And speaking of Maryland Death Fest, I got to catch these guys set that weekend, and I had never heard of them before, and they completely won me over. Just absolutely awesome, energetic, fun thrash metal. And I'm not even really a thrash guy too much. Like, I like some here and there, but these guys just blew me away in terms of their performance. And this is a great record, and you want to talk about energy, this definitely does the trick for me. The Big Freeze show a snow or ice cover. So for this one, I went with Tak, or Take Kong Winter, and this was his most recent record, which came out 2017. Wow, he's really overdue for a new one. Great Norwegian black metal, puts out great record after great record. I mean, honestly, the couple before this were just kind of okay. I thought this one was pretty exceptional in terms of what he's been doing recently. So as strong as this one is, I'm really looking forward to see what he does next. This was a pretty easy pick. Obviously, picture there, snowy forests of Norway somewhere. And there's your boy himself looking like some kind of black metal Gandalf. So there you go. Talk. A song with royal ties. Now this was a pretty difficult one. I couldn't really find anything in my collection that really had anything to do with the crown or the queen or anything like that. But the closest thing that I could find was Hate Eternal's I Monarch. And with the song I Monarch. Don't really have to do a whole lot of thinking there. Not really about British royalty, but if you look at the song title, I mean the lyrics, you can kind of maybe draw some parallels. But definitely one of the great Hate Eternal records as well. That song, it showcases kind of like one of their more catchy songs, but also some of his real sick riffing. And one of Derek Roddy's best drum performances as well on I Monarch. So there you go. That's the closest I could find. A predominantly green album cover. I went with Primus's Green Nagahide. This is about the greenest thing that I could find in my collection, and it's all about the green Nagahide. As far as Primus goes, like they really have strayed away from doing just kind of straightforward records. This is kind of the last one. And then they did the Chocolate Factory, and then they did the Desaturating 7, and all those were kind of just more experimental records. I kind of wish they would put out a record like this that is just, you know, collection of songs, full length. And this actually had Jay Lane on drums, who was great. I think this is the only full length that he ever actually played on before Herb came back to the band. But there you go, Green Nagahide. An album released in 2021 that you bought but have not listened to this year. So this would be Proscriptor's Apsu, the self-titled, which came out in 2021. I bought this. I think I listened to it like once or twice and then I shelved it. Didn't instantly blow me away. I love Apsu, at least the early stuff. I think they've been pretty consistent over the years. But I don't know. This one I basically just blind bought because I thought the album art was so cool. A lot of controversy behind this guy. I don't really know. I don't really care. Whatever. And yeah, I don't know. This one just didn't really hit me like I was hoping it would. Probably need to go back to it and see how I feel about it now, because I think at the time I was like inundated with releases and I just didn't give it the time that it was due. So I don't know. We'll see. But really cool cover art for sure. Where this stands in the entire discography of the band, I don't know. It's pretty much what you would expect from Proscriptor. So there you have it. Best find of 2022, old or new. So whenever I go to the record store, I always browse through the used CD bins because you never know what you're going to find something cool, maybe an old relic. And as far as last year goes, this is probably the coolest thing I found, would be General Surgery's Necrology, the debut EP by this band. And I'm a sucker for these old pressings, like old Relapse or Nuclear Blast pressings, because at the time I was in high school and I was coming up with this stuff. Never had a good copy of this. I think that this is an original pressing. Relapse pressing, but got it for 15 bucks, I think it was, so not too bad. Always enjoyed this one. It kind of brings me back to the old comp days. I had a couple of these songs were on a comp I had. Really good groove, grind, you know, melodic gore kind of stuff, Carcass style, but never really followed where they went after this, but always dug this one, so it was a nice find. New band album discovery of 2022. So I decided to go with one of my picks of the year, which is Vital Spirit, Still as the Night, Cold as the Wind. This is a Americana atmospheric black metal style band. Think like Wayfarer. I talked a lot about this on the year-end streams, but really easy pick because I don't see these guys getting talked about enough. And just from top to bottom, this is a great record, great first effort. There's no filler whatsoever on this, really strong songwriting, and it has that whole sort of, you know, could be kind of put into that category of the indigenous black metal bands, because a lot of this is about the Western conquest in the 1800s, and they cite a few really awesome authors in this of books that I've read before, so they really kind of, I would highly recommend a book called Blood and Thunder by Hampton Sides. To me, this is the soundtrack to that book, and I talked about that on the stream, but I just don't see these guys being talked about enough. Great first effort, looking forward to see what they do next. Vital Spirit, really awesome. An album sold to you by a song, so I decided to reach way back for this one. And in the late 90s, like kind of after when metal had died out for a while and it was starting to come back, I had some kind of Nuclear Blast comp or something like that that had a song by Meshuggah called Vanished. And that song blew my mind. It just, I was just hooked, and what got me really excited for Destroy, Erase, Improve. Metal had been dead, and then all of a sudden this came out, and I was like, man, this really just kind of redefined for me what metal could be all about in terms of like the complexity and the progressiveness of it. And ultimately, I remember at the time, like I had to like mail order the CD for Destroy, Erase, Improve from Europe because you couldn't find it anywhere. But yeah, this is one of the newer pressings that Nuclear Blast did. I'm a little bummed that they changed the artwork, but the new artwork is pretty cool. But not really crazy about where these guys have gone. But this was kind of like the last album where they were kind of had a more like melodic edge to them before they got really dissonant and angular with Chaos Fear. But they never went back to do anything like this ever again. And it's a classic record. Most anticipated album of 2023. So there's quite a few, actually. New Enslaved, Ahab. But I picked Alcest for this one because I'm pretty sure that they're going to be releasing a new one in 2023. And really kind of excited to see where they're going to go from this one. This was the last one, Spiritual Instinct, which came out. This was 2019. Wow, it's been a little bit. This was the first record that they put out that I wasn't absolutely blown away by. It's one of my favorite bands, and still a good record, but it felt like they kind of streamlined things a little bit and went a little bit more like radio friendly, if they might. It was like this sort of Alcest arena rock is the best way I could describe it. Still really good, but I don't know, these guys have just done so many absolutely transcendent records that kind of curious to see what they're going to do next. So the last I saw, they were in the studio, so I imagine something's going to come out this year. I would say that this is probably my most anticipated record for 2023. 23rd album on your shelf. So for me, that would be Anathema's Distant Satellites. This is the second to last album that these guys released before they disbanded, and pretty much in the same vein as the ones before this, Weather Systems, just soft kind of atmospheric rock, really. I love all the later Anathema stuff just as much as I do the early Death Doom shit. Last album that has gone into your collection. So this one literally showed at my doorstep today, and this was one of my picks, top 20 from last year. This is Oftrika, After the Storm. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that correct or not, so I'll put the name below. This is basically just neo-folk music. They used to be like more depressive black metal, from what I understand. I haven't really delved into their earlier records, but from what Ryan was telling me from Avi Moore's, shout out, because he got me into this band. Yeah, their older stuff is a little bit different. This is just entirely just acoustic, beautiful neo-folk music. Really great. A random pull from your collection. So I didn't go randomly pull something out of the rack, but I just randomly thought of this band because I hadn't really heard anybody talk about them before, but they're called Coprofago. And this is Unorthodox Creative Criteria. This came out in like 2004 on Galley Records, and Chilean band. The best way I could describe them is like death thrash mixed with like Meshuggah and Cynic. So it's like death thrash with like jazz fusion. And if you're into like Cynic, I highly recommend these guys. And they don't really sound like Cynic, but they just have this amazing sense of jazz fusion. The singer sounds a lot like Jens Kidman from Meshuggah, and then they have another singer that's more just low deaf vocals. And then, the songs kind of weave in and out in terms of like mixing those styles, but by the end of the record, like the last few tracks are just straight jazz fusion. Really, really cool. Really engaging listen. And last I heard, these guys might have gotten back together. They had been broken up for a while, but they kind of went under the radar. But I recommend you check them out if any of that sounds interesting to you. A band or artist that you discovered through social media. So I went with a Siberian band called Grima, and this album is called Rotten Garden. And I say I learned about this from social media because one of my boys on social media turned me on to them. And yeah, this is their last record. Well, they've got a new record out that came out last year. It was one of my top of the year, and this was the one before that, and this one is equally as good. Just awesome Siberian atmospheric black metal, very well written, and the sound of the instrumentation is very akin to their homeland, with like the accordion, like maybe a little bit of windier thrown in there, but really, really cool stuff. If you have not heard these guys, I think they're starting to kind of make the waves. But Grima, this album Rotten Garden and the new one Frostbitten, highly recommend. Where do you see your collection progressing in the next 5 years? I'm going to continue to do what I've been doing. I mean, I do all three formats. When it comes to vinyl, I blind buy some stuff, but mostly I tend to stick to stuff that I really love to keep on vinyl. If I blind buy something and I don't really care for it, or if I'm cool with just having it on CD, I might just go sell it on Discogs for the price that I bought it for. And otherwise, just stick to CDs or tapes, because, yeah, things are getting expensive. I'm probably going to have to stop blind buying things as crazy as I do. But, yeah, got to support the band, so I'm not gonna stop buying stuff. A new release that you didn't buy this year based on price alone. There wasn't really a whole lot that meets that criteria for last year, so I'm just going to go with this year. And coming up is the new Haken record. Is a band that I really like, and they are on Century Media. Their new record just got announced, and the vinyl pre-order showed up last week sometime, I think it was, and the vinyl is like $50 for just like the cheapest options. Ridiculous. I think it's probably because they're on Century Media, but most Century Media stuff is just way more expensive than it should be. I'll probably end up buying it on CD, but yeah, I would just say most Century Media releases I don't end up buying because of that reason, because they end up charging you 5 to 10 more than it really should be. All right, the last one, a song that doesn't belong, a song that lets an album down. This was pretty easy in my mind. I went with Megadeth, Rest in Peace. Can you guess what song it is? This is one of my favorite albums of all time, but it's nearly perfect, except for one song, and that would be Dawn Patrol. The second to last track, just completely out of place for this. It's like every song is a thrash metal masterpiece. Goofy bass line with Dave Mustaine just kind of whispering over it with these dumb lyrics, and it's just, I skip it every time. It's a completely stupid song. It shouldn't be on here. If anything, I don't know if they just didn't have anything else for it. I mean, they could have easily put Go to Hell on here, which was a bonus track that was much better than that song. Maybe it didn't fit in terms of the songs on this, but Dawn Patrol, really out of place and should not be on this record. Alrighty, that's it for the Metal Tag 2023. This was a lot of fun, and yeah, hopefully some guys come up with some other topics, because I just find this a little bit more engaging to do than just a regular collection update. Thanks to the Rock Scout for coming up with the topic, and I will see you on the trails very, very soon. Cheers.